What I'm trying to say in the final analysis, once we take control of ourselves, we have to stop being imitators and be innovators. And realize we've got a continent 12 million square miles. Wherever our bodies are on the face of this earth, our cultural and political heartbeat is in Africa. Whether you ever go to Africa or not, that is your home, that is the home of your spirit, and that is the heart and meaning and definition of your commitment. And none of us, any place in the world, will be free until that continent is free.
The Masi Warrior Clan was created because myself and others like Brother Nahisi saw a need for a young African group to analyze information concerning the African phenomenon with no bias, with rigor, and with scholarship. We created the Masi Warrior Clan for the purpose of being an expert research team, of being a team that produced products, a team that was capable of producing products for African people globally to dispel myths, rumors, and provide them with accurate scholarship.
innocence. We didn't expect it. We were so unsuspecting. Some of us participated in it without knowing what we were doing. And to understand it, there's 200 years of history you're going to have to look at. 1400 to 1600. It's the major turning point in world history. At the end of these 200 years, the world would never, ever be the same again. Europe had come out of its bag. It had rescued itself at our expense. It had learned longitude and latitude again. Had learned how to handle ships. They had, in their search for Asia and the spices and the sweets of Asia, they had discovered Africa en route, the greater prize. We are the victims of our own innocence. We didn't expect it. We were so unsuspecting. Some of us participated in it without knowing what we were doing.
Big guy, I got the game on the chokehold like a slip knot. Too much ambition, I got too much drive. I'm probably due for a pitch die. Black dot, reppin' the team, reppin' the squad like a mascot. Yeah, I'm the one, you know that I got it, but I still speak for the have-nots. Big guy, I got the game on the chokehold like a slip knot. Too much ambition, I got too much drive. I'm probably due for a pitch stop. Black dot, reppin' the team, reppin' the squad like a mascot. Yeah, I'm the one, you know that I got it, but I still speak for the have-nots. Yeah. It's been a hell of a run. I done bagged all of the women I wanted to bag. I probably should slow down and settle with one. Probably should hit up my mama and tell her my problem. She always wanna pray for her son. Tell her I got it, it's nothing your God could do for me. I feel much more safe with a gun. Look what I've done, just look at what I've become. They thought I was stuck in the mud, I done came up. They got up here like I weigh, I made them double the funds. Niggas be hating, probably cause they wifey like me and she wanna give me the buns. She got a friend, told her that she can come too because two heads is better than one. My competition is none.
Peace to everybody this afternoon. It's your boy Sean P in the place to be, man. I know I popped up on y'all randomly, unanticipated this Saturday. However, I did want to go ahead and get this build in. So I appreciate those of you who are live in the chat. That's Fathead Ass Mika. ATL Superstar, was good with you. Tarka, what's going on? I know there's a couple of people that are in the chat just haven't commented yet. Peace to y'all that are tapped in. You might be driving, you might be working, you might be wherever you are, but I appreciate you tapping in. Today we're going to be dealing with something that initially was brought to us in 2023, right? But it was mentioned in 2020, 2021. And that's addressing the claims of Christianity in pre-colonial West Africa. So we're dealing with this because I was a part of, I was brought into a conversation or made prevalent, I was privy to a conversation where Brother Unc and some people from the bar Reloaded, some dude named, he ain't part of the bar, but Leandre and then another dude, they were talking or trying to argue Vince Bantu's argument, and they try to throw up 20 sources irrelevant to the subject matter. None of them dealt with what was going on. And immediately when I began to hear some of the things that they were saying, I could tell that they were not privy to this information, more specifically privy to anything West African. They're Christians. They're entrenched in their Christianity. They're not worried about the origins of Christianity or how Black people got Christianity. So they were just in depth to arguing that there was a presence in West Africa and we came over as Christian. No, they were enslaving Muslims and indigenous people and converting them to Christianity. And when they left Africa, they came into those slave dungeons, which was just previously shown. Elmina's slave dungeon was previously shown, and then they were into the point of no return with a Christian name and being Christianized by those missionaries in the areas. So that we know thus far. However, Vince Bantu relies on a person of interest, which is Al Dawadari in his account, and we're going to discuss that. And I'm going to present, because he doesn't have any published work on the subject matter, he told us that he would be writing an article and dropping a book back in 2021. And we have yet to see a book or an article from Vince Bantu on the subject matter. So it kind of handicaps us in really dealing with him from the perspective. So what we have to do is just deal with his source, you know, and we have to kind of go through and present what we need to present. Yep, we had a time dedicated to just buying books, Timothy. Correct. So we have to deal with, you know, what we got, because he ain't gave us nothing. He just been doing talking points on the same subject matter and never provided a single source for it. So peace, Brother Vasa was good with you. Edward 9x9 is in the building. Chris Jackson was good. Please like the show, share the show. I know there are Christian communities out there that may be interested in the subject matter. Then there's those who oppose. Then there's other people who just need to learn something and probably need to be in the building anyway. So hit that like button, share that show. Let's get in that algorithm. Let's get busy. Hold on one second. Something that I need to do. I need to send this somewhere. Now, before I get started, yeah, two things I need to do. I just did. All right. First of all, there's a conference today that's in Baltimore. Shout out to Brother Black Panther and Kofi Paisai Piche. Black Panther and Kofi Piche are right now in Baltimore at a conference. There's lectures being given up there today. There's some monumental stuff that's taking place and transpiring. And we want to shout out those brothers for being on the scene and making things happen in retrospect, well, on behalf of the Masi Warrior Clan. So, for all of y'all who do this internet stuff, and I mean, what I mean internet stuff is social media, social media and YouTube. We do have brothers that are out there in the street. Sometimes I'm out there in the streets myself. We also go abroad. So we actually are not just talking. We do lectures and all of that too. However, those brothers are up there at that conference, and it comes at a certain time for people not only in the conscious community, but Black liberators throughout the world. We lost Assata Shakur the other day, and that's pretty sad news, even though she lived a full life and she was able to live her life out under her terms and not under the terms of the United States. That's why she, you know, stayed where she stayed and dealt with what she dealt with. However, we did lose the Queen Mother, and we are we're honored respectfully, and we appreciate respectfully her contributions to the liberation of the Black woman and man living in what we call today America. So honoring the Queen Mother, Assata Shakur, and we know that your work will continue even in your hereafter. So thank you for serving us, and we hope to serve you in your honor. Chris Jackson said, I saw videos of Bantu and I think his arguments are unprincipled. Very interesting that you would say that. What up, Ramon? What's good with you? We got Sabio, the shackle breaker, reload it in the chat. You know what I'm saying? Hit that like button, man. Share this show, man. Hit the like button, share this show. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? And peace to every other, to those of you who may have lost family members or friends out there over this past week. There's been some things that have happened. Yeah, she will be peacefully satisfied with the work she put in. And we want to pay an honor to and a tribute to her. So I can't pour this out, but I have my grape juice, right? But I got a little sip right here. I got a plate right here. Something that can absorb it right here. Yeah. We will pour libations in honor of Assata Shakur for sure. Thank you for all you've done. Man, so I see that we got a few more people in here. We appreciate those of you who have not said anything in the chat, but those of you who are coming in pretty closely. We're about to begin the bill. I just was kind of buying a little time. I did send this link over. And hopefully at the end of this, you know, we open up things and we can be a little bit more specific. I'm not really interested in other people's videos or regurgitations of another man's argument, right? I really don't even want to deal with another man's argument because he hasn't made the argument in full if he claims to be writing an article or a book on the subject matter. So if I have to revisit this topic, I am prepared to revisit it in writing, and I am prepared to revisit it in presenting, meaning that there's information in this that I can elaborate on to be more specific, right? And have some things reconsidered, have some things reconsidered in the notion of poor research methodology and what I'm just calling outright a liar. You know what I mean? You deem the man a scholar. You deem the man what they said he is, an expert on the subject matter. So we're going to take a look at all the things that you deem this man out to be. I called him a liar. Garfield said he won't go as far as calling him a liar. A bullshit. That's how I feel about it. So let me get this on the big screen. And let me see how this looks for you guys in these YouTube streets. Let me get my face off this. All right, so below the chat box will run. People will see this live. I ain't interested in removing the chat box. You can say whatever it is you want to say, however you want to say it, whenever you want to say it. It is what it is. But as you can see from the presentation, all right, here, this is addressing the claims of Christianity in pre-colonial West Africa by yours truly. And let's get to it. Briefly, while we're doing this, I will be from time to time pausing a little bit because I know I'm going to do a lot of talking. And it's not like I'm being quiet. So I will take a good sip of my Jesus juice that I got up here. Shout out to all the Christians. You know what I'm saying? It is what it is. So this is the outline of how things will be argued today. Of course, you already know that I'm going to have an introduction. I will be providing my hypothesis. We're going to deal with the claim and the attestations for those claims because it's the same claim, but it's coming in different directions. So I wanted to make sure that I address those appropriately. Then we'll look at the accounts, right? And then we'll get into Balad al-Taqwa, which is under scrutiny based on the presence of Christianity supposedly being in this area during the reign of Mansa Musa and the spread of the Malian Empire over there in the Senegal region of Taqwa. Now, you'll get the argument and then the conclusion. All right, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who are interested in learning more, in the description of this video, I did leave not only Bantu's claims, but I also left information providing on where you can cross-reference. Because we don't throw rocks and hide our hands here. So my methodology is simple. You know, we're going to deal with it how we need to deal with it. We will review the claim, the source of the claim, and provide additional information surrounding the claim by reviewing the available primary, secondary, and tertiary source information regarding the subject matter. Since the claimant has provided no evidence in any video, lecture, article, or book, we will only have the information they use to come to their conclusion. So I just put a few research questions together. These research questions was not only focused to answer something overall, but more importantly, for the basis of, this is what I meant earlier when I said if an article is published or if a book is published on the subject matter, these research questions will help me be able to elaborate more. Being that this is a presentation and I'm providing information, I did not extend the information for the sake of a potential response via writing or book, however the play want to play, right? So here's a few research questions. Was there, I don't know why I spelled it that way, but was there Christianity in pre-colonial West Africa? Did Ibn al-Dawadari actually speak to Mansa Musa? And so what if you see grammatical errors? I didn't go back over this stuff. How did al-Dawadari confirm what Christians were in West Africa? Who is al-Dawadari? What is Takrur, and who are the people in the region? This is significant, and they're out of order, but they're just questions, just to give you a format on how I'll be addressing things. So here's my introduction. And shout out to everybody that is actually still here and paying attention. Those of you who are coming in and out, I appreciate that too. Feel free to speak freely in the chat, and we'll deal with that at a specific time. A few years ago, Dr. Vince Bantu emerged on the scene arguing for and defending Christianity. Rightfully so. He is a believer in the word in the Bible. However, he is also of the belief that Christianity is not a white religion. To support his argument, he has drawn on specific narratives to form his conclusions, including one originating from an Arab ethnicity. I don't know why I did that. The actual claim, which we will review, has led many of the Christian faith to believe that white Portuguese, Spanish, Dutch, and British missionaries did not give our African ancestors Christianity. We already had it. On the outside, many of us know the history behind how West Africans in particular converted to Christianity. Still, some would argue that this is not the only way, according to the argument presented by Vince Bantu. So we will not only review the claim, but also the root of the issue and see if the evidence holds true. Remember, we ain't seen no evidence. Yeah, you know, I just had to bring this in here just to remind people that what these missionaries were doing. And yeah, they were drawing photos of themselves in their teachings and handlings of little boys, huh? Looks amazing, huh? Sick motherfuckers. So my hypothesis, your hypothesis may be a little bit different, but this is my hypothesis, okay? Black Christians online, like Hebrew Israelites, have made attempts to argue for their faith-based religion by any means. They utilize works by individuals such as Vince Bantu and establish their beliefs in Christianity in Africa, particularly in West Africa. This attempt is to argue for a Christian presence, pre-colonialism, and to inspire Christians to think that this belief system is one created by Africans. Most of this claim rests on the shoulders of Bantu, who rely on Arab sources, one in particular, whose works may not be sound. I say sound because scholars have not settled on the interpretation of a translated word that places an unknown culture in the kingdom of Takrur. I am of the belief that Vince relying on his source could be rewriting history for the sake of their belief system. His belief system.
And from the early 1300s, there is a historian from the early 1300s from Egypt. His name is Ibn al-Dawadari, and he talked to Mansa Musa, in the 1300s, who was the king of Mali, which is not the modern nation of Mali, but it was basically all of West Africa. And he actually traveled. He was a Muslim. He traveled over to Mecca to make his pilgrimage, and he stopped in Egypt, and he talked to this historian, Ibn al-Dawardari, who wrote down in his history that Mansa Musa said that there was an entire Christian section of his kingdom. Now, this is 1300, so this is over a century and a half before the kingdom of the Congo became Christian and before any Europeans ever came to the West African coast. That Mansa Musa said there were Christians in his kingdom, and not only that, but he was the richest person in the world because he controlled the gold trade. And not only that, but the Christian region of Mali, which would have been, Ghana, Senegal, parts of Nigeria, that the Christian section is actually the one that controlled the most of the gold trade. And in fact, he even said that when the Muslims tried to overtake that section to control the gold trade, the gold stopped growing. It stopped producing. And so they left them alone and allowed the Christians to control the gold rich areas of the Mali kingdom, which is West Africa. So
okay, that was in 2021. You see the date up here? I'm showing you the date. Top left-hand corner. 2021, this video, he said all of those things. Now, he was talking extremely fast. So for those of you who probably didn't hear what he said, here's his claims. Mali is all of West Africa. Dawadari spoke with Mansa Musa. There was a Christian section of his kingdom. Mansa Musa said, what? Because he claimed that when Dawadari spoke with Mansa Musa, that he said that there was a Christian section, and a little bit more. Mali, Ghana are part of Nigeria, and part of Nigeria is the Christian section. Remember, he said the Christians controlled the gold. When they try to convert them to Islam, the gold would not grow. So they stopped converting these areas, and then the gold would grow again, like magic, voila. So he said Mali, Ghana, and part of Nigeria is the Christian section. Garfield, you said that he didn't lie. You just heard him in his own words. Defend it. So I'm going to show y'all a map. And I'm going to show you where Mali's reign is. You see all of this in orange? This is the Malian Empire. But right up here is an area where they had beef with a particular group of people in Ghana. You see the Akan right here? Ouagadougou is here. On up. The Masi is in this area. Historically, the Masi and people of the Mali Empire have went back and forth. Presumably. So you're going to tell me that the Malian Empire stretched all through here into Ghana when you got Ouagadougou and you got the Masi up there? Ain't having that with them people. So how you going to get over here into Nigeria? You can't. And you ain't. But that's one of his claims. Because, ladies and gentlemen, you must remember, this is called, by the Europeans, the Gold Coast. More images here showing Mali's rule. There is Burkina Faso. There is Ouagadougou. We ain't playing no games right there. You got Ghana. You got all of that right there. Togo, Benin, Nigeria over there. Here is Mali. Again, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who can't really seem to understand or grasp the gist of how Mali is not all of West Africa. Come on now. That makes no sense. Again, look at this. Borders of the Mali Empire at the end of Mansa Musa's reign. So this is at the end of his reign. This is the Malian Empire. Ain't none of that near no Ghana. Ain't none of that near, ain't none of that near no Nigeria. Come on now. Gotta be smart. So, this is from one of the articles used on something called Barren Family Mission. It was released in 2022. So after the video that was on Facebook released, an article behind Bantu on some Christian website came out. And then it says the claim. So the claim is published there. And this is what seems to be. Now, these people prop Bantu up as this hierarchy of educated scholarship. So they said that Vince Bantu translated this. At the end of it, it says it. Translated by Professor Vince Bantu. How and when did he learn Arabic? Or the Arabic language? But anyway, let's continue. And I'm going to show you how this is not a Vince Bantu translation. I heard the magistrate Fakhr el-Din, inspector of the victorious army, say. Now remember, this is Ibn al-Daradari talking. He said he heard. That's the first problem with this statement that I'm about to read. He said he heard. But prior to that, you heard Vince Bantu say that Mansa Musa told Dawadari. But in another form, it is addressed that Fakhr el-Din, inspector of the victorious army, say, I asked the king of Takrur, el-Takrur, what is the source like where the gold grows among them? Then he said, it is not in our land, which is the property of the Muslims. Rather, it is in the land that is the property of the Christians of Takrur, el-Nasari, min al-Takrur. We send to take from them a collection that is due to us and is required of them. These are the special lands that produce gold in this way. They are small pieces of various textures. Some are like small rings, some are like carob seeds, and so on. The magistrate Fakhr el-Din replied, saying, why don't you not produce anything? We have done this in various ways, but we have not seen anything in it. But when it returns to them, it produces according to its average. This is fascinating dynamic. And this is perhaps an increase in the dominance to Guyan of the Christians.
Okay, to make some use of time, I'm going to jump a whole bunch of questions and get into this topic here because you're pushing me into it and don't even know it. But what do the historical sources say about the spread of Christianity in Central and West Africa? Because this is something that I don't think a lot of people are aware of, and this is something in your work that I found just tremendous to understand.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, it was something that that's really actually kind of the main focus of a lot of my work right now, current articles and book that I'm working on that very topic. And that's something that was asked of me because a lot of as I mentioned, you got these languages and these kingdoms that developed in East Africa to where Christianity literally produced and gave birth to books and architecture and buildings, and Christianity thoroughly permeated all of East Africa and all of North Africa, and these are the oldest civilizations on the continent. And so again, that's just significant in and of itself when we look at the fact that Christianity was prevalent, was predominant in all of the civilizations of ancient Africa. And so it just cannot be maintained that it was a European imposition or it was white man's religion, all that kind of stuff. It was already everywhere. But as you know, as go into your question, most of the evidence comes from North and East Africa, and that makes sense because those again were the biggest civilizations in Africa in the first millennium, of the Common Era. But then it begs the question of, well, did it spread further west or further south in other places? And I'm currently working in that right now, but I can say right now, be on the lookout for some art, an article that I'm working on, as well as a new book that will be out soon on this very topic. But I can start off to say now that absolutely yes, there are historical sources that indicate that Christians, which were predominant in North and East Africa, that they also began to spread into other parts of Africa. And there is evidence, predominantly in Muslim sources actually, that indicate that there were Christians in Central Africa, in areas that are now part of Western Sudan or modern day Chad, that there were Christians there in the 800s and 900s, which would make sense because as other civilizations developed in Africa, they were developing through trade and contact with the civilizations that were already there before them in East Africa. So I'm talking about like Songhai and Ghana and Mali and Kaukau and the Congo Kingdom, and then Mapungubwe, also the Swahili coast, which was especially starting to develop during the Islamic slave trade. And as Muslims were spreading throughout the southeastern part of the continent and central and western part, they also noticed that there were Christians that were already there because Nubia and Ethiopia were still predominantly Christian nations. And even though Egypt was under Islamic control, it was still a large Christian minority that was still there. And it was actually in the case of Mali, for example, King Mansa Musa actually mentioned that there were a whole Christian section in the Mali Empire, which was modern day, not just modern day Mali, but really most of West Africa, the Gold Coast, which is still controlled by Africans before the arrival of Europeans. And also this is outside of the purview of the Islamic slave trade. And Mansa Musa mentioned that there were Christians in the Mali Empire, an entire Christian section. And this is documented in sources from the 12th, 13th, 14th centuries, long before European colonialism. So absolutely, yes, Christians were already present and were spreading all throughout various parts of Africa long before Europeans arrived.
Y'all heard it. All right, so in a lecture, that video, the previous video that I just showed and played is from an interview he did in 2023. So I showed you 2021 Facebook video show up, 2022 an article shows up, 2023 a video shows up. And his claims are riding along parallel with one another. However, he indicated in the 2023 of an article and a book to be released. And it is 2025. And we haven't yet because he said coming shortly. So I don't know what shortly is according to him because we don't have so much time. So is shortly 5 years? Is shortly 10 years? Is shortly still trying to gather information? What the fuck is shortly? We don't know. Excuse my language. However, this is from a 2025 lecture that he provided. And the title of this lecture at the last conference that he was at was called Christians of Takrur, The Presence of Christianity Amidst the Trans-Saharan Trade by Vince Bantu, independent scholar in 2025. Now, I know what some people are thinking, and I totally get it. Vince Bantu in 2024, it was a bad year for him. Some information came out that he was trying to have a sister wife, and the whole church blew up on him, and then he was left out in the cold. However, he's back with this lecture. And in this lecture, he says, and this is his writings in the summary of what he was to discuss, because past tense, he already did it, what he was to talk about during this conference. The link to that conference is also in the description, just so people can chase and track down where this information is coming from to verify, cross-reference, and fact-check. He says, the emerging African empires of the medieval period came into being in large part due to trade routes that connected civilizations of various ethnicities, languages, and religions. While much of the written evidence during the period comes from Muslim travelers, they depict an interconnected African world of various religious affiliations, including Judaism, indigenous religions, and Christianity. The latter should not be surprising given the prominence of Christianity in some of the medieval Africa's oldest trading partners along the Nile River. While the emergence of Christianity in West, Central, and Southern Africa following the advent of European colonialism is well documented, little scholarship exists focusing on the presence of Christianity in these regions prior to that time. This paper will seek to address this lacuna in medieval African historiography by evaluating the evidence for the presence of Christians in Central and West Africa. Historical and cartographical documents by scholars such as Ibn al-Dawadari, Ibn Hakel, and al-Bakri indicate the existence of Christians west of Christian Nubia, while material evidence from the Darfur region and the medieval Ifa kingdom bear Christian symbols that may have emanated from the Nile Valley. So, more specifically, this is where people like my brother Hemi, Leandre, and the other dude named that might start with a G makes the assertion that people from Nubia supposedly had migrated into West Africa and brought Christianity with them along their travels. They assert this in a conversation that I had with them in the back chat. So now I know where their claim comes from. So instead of arguing with them, we're going to deal with their master teacher. The investigation will conclude with some preliminary suggestions for the sources of Christian presence in medieval West Africa. Now, I primarily focus on West Africa, but there is a small part of this presentation, as we will continue to see, that will deal with two of the three Muslims that he had mentioned. I don't even know why he brought them into this conversation, especially in 2025. You've had since 2021 on this talking point, 2020, 2021. And you have yet to produce an article or a book on a said subject matter, but you continue to triple down on your claims year after year. So, ladies and gentlemen, here is the account from Al-Din. This is what he said, right? And this writing, hold on. Let me be more specific. Not only is Al-Din speaking here, right? Not only is he speaking here, but he is having a heartfelt conversation. With who? We don't know. So, the account reads from al-Dawadari that Abu Bakr al-Adari, and he says exactly what I'm writing right here. I just had to make sure that I kept the actual document on hand, on standby, in case we need to elaborate here. But this is what goes down. It says, the inspector of the victorious army say, I asked the king of Takrur, how is the description of the place where gold grows with you? He replied, it is not in the part of the land which belongs to the Muslims, but in the land which belongs to the Christians. You see that SIC right there? Because there's some problems with this word right here. Of the Takrur, we dispatch collectors to take from them a species of the tribute due to us and obligatory upon them. These are special lands which put forth gold in this fashion. It consists of small pieces of varying sizes, some like little rings, some like carob seeds, and the like. The Cadi, Fakhr al-Din, continued, I said, why don't you take this land by conquest? He replied, if we conquer them and take it, it does not put forth anything. We have done this in many ways, but seeing nothing there. But when it returns to them, it puts forth as usual. This is a most amazing thing, and is perhaps due to an increase in the oppressiveness of the Christians. Here's the other account. And I hope y'all can see this in full. Yes, there you go. As early as the 1330s, Ibn al-Dawardari records a conversation. So remember, earlier you had heard me say that Bantu says X, Y, and Z. The article says the same thing. He said himself that al-Dawardari spoke to Mansa Musa. He kept putting it on Dawardari. That's what he kept doing. But here it says al-Dawardari records a conversation between who? Mansa Musa and the Cadi Fakhr al-Din, presumably in Cairo, in which the Mansa responds to a query concerning the location of the place where the gold grows. So al-Dawardari is not in West Africa. Rule that out. Al-Dawardari isn't present in Takrur. This isn't a conversation in West Africa. Among the king and al-Din, this is a conversation in Cairo, yet the same freaking place where Mansa Musa said how he came to be the ruler of the Mali Empire. Anyway, he says, it is not in the part of our land which belongs to the Muslims, but in the land which belongs to the Christians, Nasari, of the Takrur. Fakhr al-Din then asked the obvious, why don't you take this land by conquest? The Mansa response is instructive. If we conquer them and take it, it does not put forth anything. We have done this in many ways, but seeing nothing there. But when it returns to them, it puts forth as usual. Musa's reply establishes that gold procurement was through tribute or trade, with more cohesive measures counterproductive. It is a point of independently established by the Sheikh Abu Uthman Said al-Dukuli and subsequently recorded in al-Umaris under the authority of the Sultan of this kingdom. Mali is the land of Mafazat al-Tabir, deposits of gold. They bring unworked tabir or gold to him each year. They are uncaught infidels. Ladies and gentlemen, the man Mansa Musa called the people uncaught infidels. If the Sultan wished, he could extend his authority over them, but the kings of the kingdom have learned by experience that as soon as one of them conquers one of the gold towns and Islam spreads and the muezzin calls to prayer, there the gold there begins to decrease and then disappears, while it increases in the neighboring heathen countries. So all the other countries, he's also calling heathen countries. He in particular is Dukali, someone else speaking on the matter. So just a small recap. What's up, Infinite Minds? What up, $1 billion? Vince stated that 3 Arab sources places Christianity in West Africa. al-Bakri, Dawadari, and Hakkal. The source that follows Bantu's work only uses the account of Dawadari. We have reviewed Dawadari's claim in the Corpus and also Gomez's work, which provides more context for what has been mentioned. Dawadari asserts in the Corpus that he had overheard what the Cadi al-Din had said to Mansa Musa. Then Gomez's account provides more clarity, stating that Dawadari had recorded the conversation between the two. So we can conclude that this conversation, which supposedly transpired in Cairo, doesn't put Dawadari anywhere in West Africa to confirm the story. This is critical because Bantu never asserts, nor does the other source mention this key factor. If we base our conclusion on hearsay, we commit the same methodological flaw that others continue to make in their search for truth. And then there's Shesmu. And yes, there's problem with Mansa Musa, what Shesmu was saying in the chat. There's a lot of lies that transpired in Cairo when Mansa Musa was there telling his story. And yeah, he definitely didn't want nobody to come and take the throne from him because he had just usurped the throne and became the ruler under his own merit and made up a whole nother story about motherfuckers leaving Mali and traveling to West Africa. Excuse my Spanish. So here's the coming of the European. So Africa south of the Sahara has been known to Europeans since the Greco-Roman times. But it was not until the fourth decade of the 15th century that they began to arrive in numbers on its shores. The first to come were the Portuguese. They were followed in the 1450s by the Spaniards, who soon after abandoned Africa to explore the Americas. Toward the end of the century, some English and French adventurers and traders arrived. This is key information, what I'm about to give y'all, because it is prevalent to this whole conversation. So I have to help piece it together because we don't get no information from the latter. Portugal was the first European state where conditions were favorable for overseas expansion. It had expelled the Moors in 1262, sorry Shesmu, and a new dynasty, the House of Aviz, had emerged in 1385. The new ruling family drew its support mainly from the towns and the first of its rulers, John and his wife Philippa, the daughter of John and Gout of England, raised a new aristocracy rooted not in blood and landed estates, but in commercial enterprise. Therefore, unlike most of their contemporaries, the kings of Portugal could count on the support of the aristocracy in overseas activities. Furthermore, John and 5 sons, all of whom were anxious to win laurels on the battlefield, the third of them, Henry later to be called the Navigator, was the overseas exploration, especially after 1415 when the Portuguese conquered Ceuta, a Muslim stronghold, I might be saying that wrong, a Muslim stronghold on Moroccan side of the Strait of Gibraltar. It was during this campaign that Prince Henry is said to have had a vision and a purpose to which he would remain faithful to his death. According to Gomez Inés de Azora, the chronicler of his activities, Henry's vision and purpose were to find out what lay beyond the Canary Islands and Cape Bojador to capture, listen to this is why this is instrumental, because it says it right here, to capture the trans-Saharan trade, to investigate the extent of Muslim power, to convert people to Christianity, and to form an anti-Muslim alliance with any Christian ruler who might be found, especially with Prester John, the legendary ruler of the Christian kingdom, thought to be located in the heart of West Africa. With the financial and moral support of the crown, Prince Henry provided the essential impetus to the commencement of overseas adventurers, namely patronage, inspiration, and direction. Ladies and gentlemen, these people are telling you two things here that you cannot brush over, really a few. The reason that they wanted to travel: to capture the trans-Saharan trade, investigate the Muslims' power, and to convert people to Christianity, and to form an anti-Muslim alliance with any rulers, Christian ruler who might be found, especially with Prester John. So if Christians was in the area, they wanted to form alliances with them to make an anti-Muslim alliance. The Christians never wrote that they found a Christian presence in West Africa. The Christians never wrote that they formed an alliance with that said Christian community. Takrur is the closest point of the damn Atlantic coast. If they're handling gold and they're handling trade, when the Europeans come into West Africa, Takrur is a destination port and spot in which they would have found an anti-Muslim alliance with a Christian ruler, but they never mentioned it. They forego all of that to talk about Prester John, the mythical mother freaker who enters Africa some kind of weird way as an scapegoat for the missionary work and the advancement of the European and their blood-sucking fingers for wealth and bodies on that continent. So, now that we set the table for the coming of the European, we fully understand its intent and purpose. Let's deal with the Balad al-Takrur. That is the land of Takrur. You may have seen Balad al-Sudan, which is the land of the blacks. Now, this is specifically talking about the people of Takrur, as the Muslims say. So let's just deal with it. What up, Zane? Arabic authors, after the 14th century, often referred to the Western Sudan by the name of Balad al-Takrur, and to the Sudanese Muslims as Takrur, or the people of Takrur, knowing that the Egyptians called the king of Mali by the name of the king of Takrur, helped them off of their confusion by denoting that Takrur is only one of the regions in his empire. Two reasons may go same way to explain how it came about that the name of the region in the far west on the Senegal has been applied to the whole Western and Sudan. The whole West and Sudan, sorry, typo. Takrur was first described by El-Bakri. Takrur, a town of the Nile, the Senegal, is inhabited by black people. These, like the rest of the Sudanese, had been pagan. Listen to what he's saying. This is one Muslim that's in the area, is writing about the area, and he's addressing it. And Bakri is writing in the early AD period, before Mansa Musa. He says, these, like the rest of the Sudanese, has been pagan and worship idols until the reign of Warjabi, son of Rabiz. He became Muslim, introduced Islamic law, and enforced the religion upon his subjects, opening their eyes to the truth. He died in 432, which would be 1040 AD to 1041 today, 1067 to 68, the people of Takrur are Muslims. Remember, the Europeans are coming to establish an anti-Muslim presence, alliance with people, and to convert people to Christianity. Yet when they enter Takrur, we see an all-Muslim state. It's an all-Muslim state. Before it was a Muslim state, they were pagans. They were idol worshippers. Where is Christianity among the incoming Muslim converts, the pagans and idol worshippers? This is Bakri's account. Then he continues. First, Takrur was one of the earliest Sudanese kingdoms to embrace Islam. That's a fact. And its people remained devoted to its faith. So we have an author here in early AD period, right around the 1040 part, and he's telling us that the people are Muslim converts. They embraced Islam. Their kingdom was Islam. But we got the white people telling us, or the Europeans telling us, that they're coming and they're looking to understand the Muslim presence, their power, and to convert people and build an alliance against the Muslims who are in Takrur. Then second, these Muslim, listen what the author says. He says, these Muslim people of Takrur, the Takruri of Arabs, of the Takular of the French, spread during the centuries over large parts of the Sudan, along with their Fulani kingsmen. You heard people, well, if you're watching the chat or participating in the chat, Brother Taraka is in the chat and he mentioned the Fulani. He also mentioned Futajoro. So there's some things here that are about to come out that speaks to that. Then we have Al-Aldrisi. Ladies and gentlemen, we have another Arab Muslim speaker. What does he say? He's writing in 1153-54. He describes the king of Takrur as an independent sovereign, possessing slaves and troops and renowned with his solutions, firmness, and sense of justice. Traders from the Maghreb used to come to Takrur, importing wool, copper, and beads, and exporting gold and slaves. Silla, another commercial town on the Senegal east of Takrur, is described by both El-Bakri and El-Adrisi as tributary of Takrur. Its people are Muslims. He says the people are Muslims, having been converted by Warjabi, the king of Silla, fights the pagans inhabiting the country between his own towns and Ghana. So we got somebody in Senegal that is fighting the pagans, or what they're calling the pagans, those idol worshippers. Oh, still no Christian presence. Holy hell, Batman. That's 2 Muslim, 3. We got a third. We're going to get to it. So, the Takrur were divided into 2 categories. The sedentaries, who lived in villages, a few of which were on the southern banks of the river, and the nomads who roamed the country, and most of whose ranges were of the northern bank. The Fulani, whose early home was in Takrur and its neighborhood, are a people about whose origins and activities in West Africa there has been a great deal of controversy. Briefly, what apparently happened was this. For centuries, the autochthonous Negro Fulani inhabitants of the Middle Senegal Valley were infiltrated by pastoral Berbers from the region immediately to the north. Yeah, Mauritania. Yeah, them Berbers. What happened? According to the Caucasoid pastoral Fulani, were often accompanied in their migrations by their Negro sedentary kinsmen. These later were generally better educated as individuals, more sophisticated in politicians, and more fanatical as Muslims than the former. So that when the pastoralists did not meet the local opposition to their encroachments, the sedentaries provided the requisite political and military leadership for the resistance. And when the sedentaries on their part felt so strongly about the prevailing social and religious conditions that they declared a jihad, holy war, the pastoralists provided the rank and file of the fighting forces. In the final analysis, at all events, if militarily and politically, the Fulani sometimes became conquerors and rulers of their former host. Racially and culturally, they often lost their identity among the conquered and ruled. We've identified several Muslim writers in the area of Takrur, and based on each account, neither of them speaks of a community of Christians. We have also identified that there are two different groups of people living in the area. The Berbers, who are presumed to be white culturally, and the Negroes. Those who weren't converts were deemed pagans who idol worship, while everyone else were believers of the Muslim faith. Vince Bantu argument, he doesn't provide us with any evidence to support his position on the so-called Christian community, and he hinges his entire argument on an Arab that supposedly overheard a conversation about someone being in a certain area that were not Muslim. Vince doesn't identify or confirm who the non-Muslim people were, and without any evidence drew a conclusion based on hearsay and not evidence. Vincent didn't bother to read the accounts of Mansa Musa or cross-reference his sources to be certain his belief was certain. Let's move on to the land of the gold. The black, they call it the black gold. We're still in Takrur, but there's another name over there, dealing with Senegal and the Malian Empire. They call it the land of black gold, Tabir's gold. Yeah, the land of black gold. In Arab sources, we find many references to the disappearance of gold when the producers were converted to Islam. This possibility was equally disastrous for the Muslim North as the client and for the local rulers who were the middlemen. Thus, the gold producers were not converted, and they were very numerous. Al-Umari explains that Mansa of Mali tolerated in his empire the existence of a pagan population, which he exempted from the tax that was imposed on unbelievers, but which he employed in gold mining. I want to run it back to a previous conversation that I presented here about how Muslims would tax the Jews. Y'all remember that? If you don't remember it, Muslims have always taxed foreign people in the lands that were non-Muslim. However, in the instance of the source that I just provided you that comes out of volume 3 of the UNESCO volumes, this is where it's coming from, right? When providing you with this, it clearly says pagan population. Christians are not considered pagans. No matter what shape, form, or fashion you want to try to spin it, Christians have never been called pagans. But I'm going to continue on. I'm just dropping these little jewels here and there, everywhere. The figure of this blacksmith is also associated with magic. Oh, no, I skipped, my bad. Sorry. The fundamental reason, this goes back to the first paragraph, for which he employed in gold mining. So the fundamental reason is that the gold prospecting and production were accompanied by a number of magical operations and were bound up with a system of beliefs of which we can still discern traces. The same applied to iron, which provides perhaps an even clearer example than gold. In many areas, there was close association between the royal authority and the master smelters and smiths. So the figure of blacksmiths is also associated with magic. Are Christians associated with magic? With the dangerous power of the iron masters, with the passage of the time, this type becomes more and more antithetical to that of the marabout. The marabout, or more simply the bearer of Muslim law, was to eliminate the influence of the iron worker. Islamization seems to have been accompanied by a break in the earlier alliance between royal power and the iron workers. The latter were still feared on the account of their magical and economic power and gradually formed an isolated group. I got a typo in there. So, Ibadite sources provide examples of genuine mutual religious tolerance and of a large measure of understanding towards pagan African cultures. When I told you that they never called Christians pagan, the pagan word was toward African cultures and their social practices. Things changed with the triumph of Sunni orthodoxy in the 11th century and the emergence of religious phenomena that were far less ready to display tolerance, such as the Almoravid movement. This was the beginning of the second period in which the efforts of Islam were increasingly directed towards the standardization of patterns of life in the lands under its influence. We are thus thrown back on the product of which all the Arab authors speak, and to which all the historians have paid attention, viz. Gold. The Muslim world, a significant consumer of gold, especially since the reforms at the end of the 7th century, behaved in relation to its fringes as an enormous demand area. The Muslim West, except for Ifriqiya, someone just said that in the chat, under the Ayyūbids, did not mint gold for coinage. It is also for that time that information about African gold production became at least relatively less mythological and more geographically accurate. The Arab sources attest that gold existed in rough form in West Africa, but apparently those in power south of the Sahara, whether Muslim or not, never even after 1050 turned this gold into coin. Recap. The Muslims referred to Takrur as the land of black gold, as well as other places. They had specific idea who the infidels or pagans were and who lived in the areas. These pagans worked the areas and brought forth gold to trade. Gold was very to them, but is most important is the fact that we have yet to identify Christians in pre-colonial West Africa. So let's go back to al-Dawadari's account. We're going to go back to Dawadari's account for two reasons. Peep game. In Vince Bantu's argument, apparently he either failed to account for or go check out the footnote attached to the area of the Corpus where Dawadari professed to have overheard what Kaidi al-Din and Mansa Musa were discussing. In the Corpus on page 409, it states, CFP 267, where the informant was the Sheikh al-Dukhali. He says that the land of gold belonged to the infidels, Kufar, not Nasari, Kufar, not Nasari, Kufar. Who said what? Let me go back and slam the hammer. Let me drop the gavel down one more time. In the same freaking source that Vince Bantu kept trying to bring forth, it discusses in the footnote of the Corpus where Dawadari professor have overheard what Kaidi al-Din and Mansa Musa were discussing. In the corpus on page 409, it states, where the informant was Sheikh al-Dukali. So, Dawadaris didn't hear shit. His informant was Sheikh al-Dukali. And he said that the land of gold belonged to the infidels. When did they call Christians infidels? When did they call Christians pagans? When did they call Christians non-believers? So the correct word was kufar, but that's not it. There are also references to Judaism in the interior on pages 97 and 108 of the same corpus. But this seems to be the first reference to Christians Nasari, which is odd, by both authors, Levtzion and Hopkins. To add, Gomez's account also provides a footnote regarding the matter. On 250, he says, as Christianity in West Africa at this time is unverifiable, in contrast to ancestral practices, their equation may have been meant as a critique of the former. Also, Gomez differs on the translation. Ooh-wee. Smoking gun. Smoking gun. Let's continue. Vince Bantu couldn't have translated any text written by al-Dawadari. At best, he's a theologian who was released last year by the institution he worked for in Houston. None of his credentials speaks to having a background in Islamic studies or languages. He, in his assertions, have relied heavily on Arab scholars of their day, in particular one that is using hearsay to claim the presence of Christians in an area that other Arab scholars who were actually in the area never attested to. Battuti is the only Muslim to have traveled and visited the Sudan himself, while other Muslims depended on informants. There is no consensus in scholarship over any translation of any word that links Christians to Takrur. El-Daridari has valuable information on the Fatimids and is one of the most interesting historians of the Barhid dynasty. But he frequently cites his father as a source for events in the last two parts of his history. But he seems to have exaggerated his father's importance by attributing to him information from other sources. Dawadari may also have falsified his own genealogy. He breaks from traditional Arabic historiography in many ways. His writing style is more personal, spiced with anecdotes, and for the earlier periods, dependent in part on popular legends. Uh-oh. The evidence of pre-colonial Christianity in West Africa is essentially confined to slight archaeological traces implying Christian influence found near unexcavated fortified town of Jador in northern Niger, and some believe of a town in Kawar Oasis being called Kasir Isa, or Castle of the Mother of Jesus. Neither of these are smoking guns, nor are they confirmed. So generally speaking, there is no conclusive evidence of it, although there is little speculation. Uh-oh. Steady voice. Steady voice. Let's go. Christianity in North Africa was confined mostly to the coastal and the hinterlands directly adjacent to its contrary, the image some people may have had in their heads of heavenly Christianized North Africa prior to Umayyad conquest, even more so when acknowledging the reality that Christianity in North Africa, even along those coastal regions, was a large urban phenomenon. Many Saharan populations, namely the Goramites to be exact, did not adopt Christianity until quite later than the rest of North Africa around the mid-6th century. 569, the Gomiyats, and it's the Gomiyats, and it is in the period that the scholars like Vikør not speculate some Christian influences may have trickled through the Sahara, but this is a very brief period in Saharan history. While there are some recognizable influences from the Byzantine in the Central Sahara from this belief period into the form of tombs throughout the Fezzan, and even some projected influences of past Fezzans in the form of a way of some forts in the region of Tibesti, Kawar or Fezzan's design. It does not seem as if this process of Christianization was particularly potent enough to point where Christianity would diffuse quickly through the Sahara and into Sudanic Africa before the advent of the Umayyad conquest. Secondly, the pre-Islamic trans-Saharan trade did not occur with nearly as much vigor as it did after the Umayyad conquest. We do not have solid examples and proof of Saharan populations like the Goromantes trading with the Sahelian population, and even some theorized evidence of the Sahelian migration to Goromantian regions and the genetic affinity between the Sahelian populations and some Goromantian populations, as well as cultural affinities, and then trading with populations along the Mediterranean coast. However, these trade routes seem to have been significantly more limited than those that formed after the Umayyad conquest of North Africa. As it pertains to al-Bakri, it was common for early Arab writers such as al-Bakri to refer to non-believers of Islam in their works as lam-lam, lim-lim, or dam-dam, which may be a corruption of the Siri title Lamand. That's coming from the people in Senegal. Let's continue. As it pertains to Ibn Hakel, the only time he mentions Christianity in the corpus is when he is referring to Nuba back in East Africa. He makes no account of Christianity in West Africa, or more specifically, Takrur. There was no reason to bring him into the equation, knowing that the corpus doesn't attest to the claim and no viable evidence exists. Reminder. Let's go to school. Reminder. One of the premier guidelines of historical analysis is that all historians evaluate their sources to determine their quality and accuracy. Beyond determining whether a source is a primary or secondary, it is imperative that historians use their knowledge to judge the nature of sources and how they should be used. Remember, each primary source carries where it is biases of its author. These biases alter the presentation of the information, and many historical sources are written with clear purpose and intention, attest to the claim, and no viable evidence exists. A key element to this historical analysis process is making historical inferences. Historians take a collection of facts and there infer larger understanding and conclusions. In order to answer the how and why questions of historical analysis and research, historians need to gather all the possible evidence, vet it for bias and authenticity, understand the larger picture presented by these facts, and then make logical conclusions based on what they have learned. Historical fallacies come about due to false reasoning on the part of historians. Their arguments may be built upon shaky logic by not considering inherent biases or by using incomplete and corrupted evidence. Fallacies can come about by not understanding considerable multiple points of view or perspectives and gathering documentary evidence, or from the lack of complexity when analyzing causality, or from imposing modern sensibilities upon actors in the past, or from not considering change over time. Presented as rational and well-supported conclusions, fallacies are incredibly dangerous as they actively spread misinformation and cover up objective historical arguments. Fallacies can be created both intentionally and unintentionally, depending on their authors. The subject matter and the influence of certain arguments can be had. Fallacy is incredibly dangerous in historical work, as an established and believed fallacy can impede on the proper and well-vetted historical analysis from being accepted, sometimes for generations. These historical fallacies can be weaponized and used for political purposes, while others slowing the progress of solid historical work. If historians are constantly working to undo the entrenchment of fallacy, they are slowed into progressing their fields. You're slowing me down. A powerful historical fallacy can be used to motivate devastating events and have countless times in world history. In order to avoid historical fallacy, we must be open-minded to proper historical analysis, understand and view multiple perspectives in any event, and focus on determining the difference between the facts and the biased opinions masquerading as such. By allowing historical analysis process to take place in full, we as a society can push dangerous fallacies aside and arrive at objectively determined historical conclusions, ladies and gentlemen. Based on the available data as it pertains to Christianity in pre-colonial Africa, it is based on hearsay between two people who supposedly had a conversation in Cairo, Egypt, and neither of them spoke directly to the person who documented the conversation. This supposedly came from the same person who claimed that he became the ruler of Mali because the previous successor had been lost at sea. Ibn al-Dawardari provided no primary evidence to support what is claimed to be in his writings, and Takrur hasn't uncovered any evidence of an early Christian presence. We have multiple sources who also take issue with al-Dawadari's translations, as it seemed very odd and unverifiable. Vince Bantu omitted the author's notes in his research and is yet to provide the evidence, as he has drawn much interest from Christian zealots who have seemingly anointed Bantu as some scholar. Academia hasn't come to the consensus on the claim. And by the way, it has moved. It's not even interested in actually dealing with the subject matter because the claimant never was in West Africa and did not provide any supportive evidence. Vince has no understanding of West African history and culture, and at best, who he is proposing to be Christians are actually indigenous inhabitants of the land. Until he can provide evidence for the assertion based on a random person who was living in Syria at the time, we can't continue to take this claim seriously. All sources are sourced on each slide and are also located in the description of the video in the case anyone wants to challenge the information presented. We do not hide our sources or delay publishing our arguments on any subject related to history, culture, or the African American and diasporian experience for 5 years. Thank you. Appreciate y'all showing up on this Saturday, tapping in, and listening to me present the case for the latter. Anyone claiming a Christian presence in West Africa must show and prove. Appreciate that, shares move. Let me stop sharing. Let me come back to the people. There were Goramentes at the time, right? I don't know what y'all talking about in the chat, so I don't want to get lost. But my people's in here going back and forth, right? We all studying this history, we all having these conversations, we all reading these different historical documents and tapping into that old history on the continent. I thought Hannibal was said to be a Phoenician. I could be wrong. I could be wrong too, bro. Hannibal is not strong. So, I ain't getting into Hannibal. Yeah, mixed with Berbers is a fact. Carthage was a Berber people, but the royalty, yeah. Okay, so okay, they putting 2 and 2 together. All right, I got y'all. I see what y'all doing. Yeah, y'all was having a good conversation right there. Christ didn't exist until like 1 AD, Shesmu. As a human, I mean. And shit was an argument for me. Canaan Barno probably gave slaves the title Lamb Lamb. That's one of the things too. There's a lot of things that we actually could speak to. Vasa's in the chat. For those of you catching the replay, Vasa is in the chat and he's dropping access to books and other information that speak towards coinage and other things that were mentioned during this discussion as well. North Africans had Christians after at least, yeah, North Africans had Christianity. So you have to think about it. There's a stronghold, right, of a Muslim presence and then a small Christian presence in certain parts of North Africa. People keep wanting to run to Egypt because they know Christianity has reared its head over there into that part of North Africa, or that part of the Mediterranean regions and areas in the Levant and so on, and then down in the East Africa, right? They wanna do that because they have evidence for that. But what they don't have evidence for is it crossing the Sahara, coming from east to west. What they don't have is evidence of Christianity flowing through those Muslim areas of North Africa and then creeping in. No. What I did say, and what I will continue to say, that the people provided us, well, the sources provided us with 2 specific accounts. Outside of the realm of the Sahara, away from the land of the blacks, possessed 2 points where Jews appear on trade routes. They're not in the land of the blacks. They are outside and they're doing business. The same way the European comes into West Africa and stays on the shores and the banks in those areas, and they never got into the interior. The Jews were restricted to that same thing. So that we know those things, we know how it looks. This argument of a pre-colonial Christianity is not even a part of the conversation. Because I just showed y'all, I held back too, because there's more. But I just showed y'all specifically the accounts of where this stuff is coming from are saying, whoa, 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 wait a minute, not so fast. It's odd that this word would be here. Even worse, we don't even know if it's translating out to that. And then behind all of that, Al-Dawradari isn't speaking to Mansa Musa directly. Al-Dawradari is not speaking directly to Al-Din. Al-Dawradari is talking to an informant. Al-Dawradari only been in 2 places. When he grew up in Cairo, supposedly grew up in Egypt, and then he left to Syria to go live with his family and his father, where he would spend the rest of his life out. As a kid, he goes to Syria, like teenager. Then he gets to doing all these writings and things of this nature. So everything that he writes about specific accounts is no different than Leo Africanus. He ain't in any damn areas. He here saying the hell out of history. That's why they talk about Africa the way they talk about Africa. They denote it, especially the land of the blacks, Balad al-Sudan. They not nasty work. So I'm saying it very slowly for the Christians. Dawadari doesn't talk to Mansa Musa or Al-Din. never had a conversation with them. He talked to a whole nother person. And the person that he did talk to, which would be an informant, told him that they was infidels. He didn't say they was Christian. He gave them a whole nother name. So how could you come to the conclusion? This is what I mean by cross-referencing and reading out the sources in full. He don't even say what you're trying to get him to say. And I knew that when I introduced y'all into a whole nother person, so now you ain't overhearing a conversation like you claimed that you was a part of a conversation. Well, I'm sorry. Vince Bantu claimed that Dawadari was having a conversation with Mansa Musa. Ends up, Dawadari never had a conversation with Mansa Musa. So he's overhearing a conversation. And that ain't even the thing. He didn't even overhear the conversation because he got the account from a whole nother person who just so happened to be there. None of this is mentioned. What I'm saying to y'all has never been mentioned. Not by none of the Christians, not even by the Hebrew Israelites, or none of them fools, because they even tried to attest to make the argument for the Jews, not the word being for Jews and not Christians. That's how really some of this shit stuff came about, excuse my French. He called the people infidels, kufar, al-Dukali. He didn't say Nasara. He didn't use the word. So how did the word change from kufar to Nasara? Vince Bantu. And you sitting over there with a picture of a book that's written in Arabic, and you trying to make it seem like you get what you got. And you showing a word right there. Dawadari could have wrote it there in his documentation. But that is not what the informant told him. The informant didn't say Christians. He didn't. Prove the informant wrong. He said kufar. Prove first. So Vince Bantu, got a couple questions for you. Can you prove first that Dawadari had a conversation with Mansa Musa? Then secondly, can you prove that Mali is all of West Africa? Then third, can you prove that Dawadari actually had a conversation with Al-Din, who had a conversation with Mansa Musa? If you can't prove any of that, then where did you get Nasara from? Where did the Dawadari get the word Nasara from that he's translating into Christian? That's what I want to know. Shazmu says, good research, bro. Appreciate you. You said I never read this information before. Damn, my bad. Well, now you know. Yep, that's the word. Kufaras. It's definitely hearsay. Is Lion Leandre in the chat? Nope, I don't think that he's in the chat. Now, I just want to go back to something real quick. I only presented this because I was privy to a video that was on the Bar Reloaded's channel. And in there, they're having this conversation. Unc is having this conversation with Leandre. And Leandre is saying all this shit and then trying to get everybody to go watch a video that him and old boy keep promoting in the Bar Reloaded's chat on a Facebook chat. So, being privy to this discussion and even the screenshot from Vince Bantu, I knew that there was a problem, right? They ain't read all the work. They read what they wanted to read, and then they rolled out with that shit. It's the most biased thing to do. It is improper, and it causes problems in your research. So you drew a faulty conclusion based on hearsay, and let alone, then you done switch some stuff up. Dawadari was never in West Africa. When Dawadari is writing, he is writing through the mouth and ear of an informant that says Kufar, Kaffur. Infidels, meaning infidels. He doesn't say Christians. So show me the Christians owning and controlling gold in West Africa, Vince Bantu, from Takrur, the kingdom of Takrur, Ghana, and Nigeria. I want to see that because you made those assertions and those claims in the videos. That was the reason why I said I'm not finna argue with the little guys. No offense, Hemi, but you're a little guy on this subject matter. You can't argue for Vince Bantu. Leandre and the other dude name who I can't mention, I can't mention it because I don't even know the motherfucking name. Excuse me again, cussing. But y'all dudes are little guys. Y'all ain't on it. This is Vince Bantu argument. So instead of me arguing or debating y'all over this subject matter, I can present the information and show you about 90% of what's in the bag. The other 10% I could save for another day. But I can show you that. I ain't gotta have my hand. I ain't gotta have no sources. I ain't gotta do none of that. I show you what I need to show you. Just get straight to the point. And the point is, you can't prove it. I don't care what Dawadari says. When I know that it's hearsay, it's other people. So what are the other people saying? Now I got to go to the caller's account. So y'all don't even deal with that. And what's so funny is, this is where you coming from. Vince Bantu is coming from. And ain't none of y'all got where Vince Bantu is coming from. None of y'all own this text. Not the people who published the online articles sitting there saying this, that, or the third. Yeah, y'all full of SH poo-poo. None of y'all got it. The author gave you a footnote and then explained it, and y'all totally ignored it. And then I came from the hip from a whole nother historian on West African medieval history. Shoot all of it down because it further elaborates. What we can say is this right here. We can say that Mansa Musa made it to Egypt, brought with him a lot of gold. Mansa Musa also told a story on how he became the ruler. Mansa Musa also might have said a whole lot of other things to those people, whether true or false. But al-Dawadari ain't there. He ain't a part of this conversation. He ain't next to Musa. Dawadari ain't even writing like he talked to Mansa Musa. Dawadari is telling you in his own writing. At first he put it on, I heard that Katie Fakhr al-Din, inspector of the victorious army, say, I asked the king of the Takrur, yada, 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 yada. Because that's what he's writing. But when you find out that Al-Dukala is associated with as his informant, that's where the shit came from. That ain't first person. That ain't second person. What is it? Because they stupid. I don't know who would say that Mansa Musa ain't a real person. He's definitely a real person. He usurped to the throne. What ain't real is some of the things that I said about Mansa Musa And a lot of that is exposed in Cairo when he was running his freaking mouth. And he was up there for political reasons because he wanted to expand his kingdom. He wanted to expand his kingdom into some other areas. And he needed permission to do that under the banner of the Muslim king of Egypt. And then, how could Mansa Musa get to Mecca without going through the bottleneck that is Egypt, Sean? And ain't no way he can do that, IBM. There's no way. The path that he takes him directly there. I don't care. If he would have stayed across the Sahara and went in the east and went east, he still don't get to have his conversation with the people that he went up there for. He needed to go to Cairo for political reasons. He needed to establish himself as a successor, and he needed to let his appearance be shown and known to the king up there in Egypt, that Arab. He needed to put his face on the scene as a political prowess and presence for West African history and among his people and everything. IBM. That's what I said. But guess what? Guess what he got to do? He still got to go to East Africa to cross the Red Sea by boat. What are you going to do? Take his kingdom, which is in the middle of the desert, walk them people to the shores of the Atlantic in Senegal, get on a whole bunch of boats and raft their ass around the bottom of Africa and come back up on the other side, and then coming to the no, it ain't happening. They wasn't nautical. They wasn't even nautical like that. He said, "Stop calling the sea red. Call it reed." IBM crazy in the mug. I think he ran into one of those Mamlūk sultans. Those dudes were taxing. Yes, he did run into a Mamlūk sultan. He ran into a bunch of people. But more importantly, when he got to Egypt, he got to splurging. So he started buying all this shit they ain't have in West Africa. Excuse my language again. I'm just going to keep cussing. I'm at the part of the show where the scholarship is over. So he gets there, and hey, I'm just finna keep it real. Treat Mansa Musa like a Harlem dude. You know how Cam be on camera, how Mace be on camera, how Dame Dash be on camera, right? They think Harlem cats is the flyest cats in the whole world, right? They swag a certain way, the vernacular a certain way, you know what I'm saying? The coolness they lingo a certain way. Like they think Harlem cats is like the strongest and the toughest cats, right? So look at Mansa Musa, how you see Cameron Mason and Dame Dash when they talking about these Harlem people, right? And what happened is he leaves Harlem. Stay with me. I'm gonna reverse the path. They leave Harlem and end up in LA. Because the LA is where that munyan at. Is where you got to go get your political capital at. No, not LA. Let me take it back. They leave Harlem and go to, you got to make it make more sense. So we'll say DC at the time, right? Because, District of Columbia is what I'm talking about. The president and all that's down there. So they leave Harlem, travel down into DC because they need to expand Harlem, right? They trying to take over the 5 boroughs. So they trying to make Harlem the whole New York City. So they need to go somewhere where they can get that type of permission to be able to get policies and stuff like that passed in order for all of that to come into fruition. However, when they get to DC, right? When that Harlem cat get to DC, along the while, he's seeing people looking like him a little bit. He's seeing these other people. So what they began to do, try to impress people. So what they put on, the new Gucci boots. You know what I'm saying? The new Gucci trench coat with the hoodie, with the crocodile Gucci jacket with the alpaca hoodie fur on the front of it or whatever the hell. They styling, profiling. They down there in they flyest gear with their Gucci glasses on, Rolexes up. They got on about $20,000, $30,000 worth of necklaces on, maybe 50. You know what I'm saying? They stunting. In the car, they pop the trunk. They got a whole bunch of money and munyan in there. And that munyan, they want some of that munyan down there in DC. So they pull out the munyan out the trunk, break bread with a lot of people, start buying these extravagant things that they ain't got back in Harlem. So they buying it because they got the money and they doing this and that and that. And they trying to impress and put on. They get these fancy silks, cottons, linens, all this old things. They buying this, buying that. They need camels so they can cross over into what's the name to get to Mecca anyway. So they buying all that fly shit, right? Fly. That's what we do. We do fly shit. So I mean, come on, it ain't just Harlem. Like, come on, for real. Be serious. Everybody in the chat know black people love to put on. It's like for the Christians going to church on Easter. You know what I'm saying? So they go, they jump fly, they go try to network and do all of this. They devalue the value of a dollar down there while they doing it. But the whole time, you know what I'm saying? They still putting on. They got women with them. They giving these dudes women. They got a couple, you know what I mean? A couple of follower flunkies. You know what I'm saying? They need to get some work done. So they leaving the flunkies down there to get some work with the people. The whole 9 yards. All that's going down. Musa got women. He got women with him. He got flunkies with him. Made a trip all the way across. They just breaking bread. They doing shit like if you was a drug dealer and you was the man on your block, you take your whole hood to the Super Bowl. Same Come on now. You get there, you handle your business, you get to doing all this fly stuff. Then all of a sudden, these people running game on you while you up there thinking that you big willy-nilly. Because now they have control of the value that what you got right there. So that ain't your bread. Now you broke. You spent all your money. Yeah, but you was down there impressing, flexing, and doing all that correction just to be getting G-checked in. You ain't want none of that smoke, bro. Y'all want them balls. But I'm just saying, then that's what happened. They got Mansa Musa. They didn't have to stick a gun to him, a knife to him. They had to do none of that. They beat him on the goods and services. So now he broke. So now he had to go long. He had to go borrow money. So I'm finna put y'all up on something. So you know the historical context about Mansa Musa. So I'm answering Lucky's question by showing you how real Mansa Musa is. But at the same time, the nigga he goes broke in Egypt. Then he turns around, right? Excuse me, I know I said that wrong. But he turns around and he broke and he meets with somebody to borrow money from him. Guess who he goes to borrow the money from? I'm finna bring it back to you. Al-Din. He goes to borrow money from the dude, the Katie, Al-Din. He tells the Katie Al-Din about the shop back home where he can get the X, Y, and Z. Like, yeah, bro, I can get your bread. I just need to get back home. When I get back home, I'm going to hit you off for the 20, 30 bands you got me to get back to the crib. You know what I'm saying? When you got time and you break away from up here, bro, come holler at me. I'm going to be over in X, Y, and Z, and then I'm going to break you off. Al-Din like, cool. I'm with that. The whole time, one of the dudes outside the doors or outside the area where Mansa Musa and Al-Din having this secret conversation because he broke and he trying to get back to Mali. He's saying to him, yo, somebody outside like, yo, you hear that? But he said, to go over here where the yada 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 is. Yo, maybe we can ride down on him and get the go ourselves. He plotting. You know how you shady dudes is listening to this. Some of y'all done burnt y'all homie. Y'all done backdoored the hell out of y'all homies before. If you ain't never backdoored your homie before, then that's real love. But some of y'all be backdooring y'all homies. And it's crazy. But anyway, Musa tells them in a conversation. So what I'm trying to tell y'all is the conversation actually happened between Mansa Musa and Al-Din. But somebody outside, not a part of the conversation, is listening to some of the stuff that's going on. That person listening don't know exactly what them two are discussing and overhears something, and then he go tells another mother what he heard. But when he go tell somebody else what he heard, this person ain't listening to what he thinking. He think what he's saying. He say something totally different. He put everything else in the context except for infidels. So now, this whole conversation about Takrur and the kingdom and Christianity being in the area is all based on hearsay. But to Lucky your point, we have the evidence to prove that Mansa Musa did exist because the mother freaker's name shows up on the king's list. He actually became one of the Mansas. Before they became the Askiyas, they were Mansas. So in Mali's history, the name Mansa Musa shows up. Malikor, his real name, Malikor Kankan Musa. Malikor Kankan Musa. Real spill deal. So to answer you, Lucky, and to provide historical context in a more up-to-date fashion, using some flavor, he existed. He was there. He was on the king's list. Now, granted, the people in Mali, they don't talk about him. Everybody else talk about him. The Arabs talk about him. The Arabs told the rest of the world. Europeans overheard the conversation. They talk about him. Mali don't. Yeah, they ain't with him like that. They ain't with Mansa like that. They with somebody else. You want to know who they with? Sundiata. Sundiata is, yeah, Sundiata like that. Sundiata is the guy. He is the reason and the birth for the kingdom. Public Enemy, you late as hell, bro, because I done already went through the bill. I'm just right now, you know what I mean? I'm interacting with the fellas in the chat. Mika said, I never. That's why everybody isn't your friend. But me saying that, Mika, about the conversation between Al-Din and Mansa Musa and someone else hearing it, is that I wanted to prove to you that it's hearsay. So once I've proven to you that it's hearsay, you can't come back from that, right? And you can't come back from that and then try to insinuate something else. You can't superimpose a belief on something because you didn't even know that this whole thing was hearsay. You thought it was a proven fact based on somebody because of your Christian affiliation with that motherfucker, because y'all both Christians. Public Enemy asked me, am I keeping this up for rewatch? Bro, why the hell would I take this down? This is not coming down, bro. There's no reason for me to take this down. Yo, Deshaun Jackson, I know y'all didn't lose this game, bro. Y'all was just up and winning. And you didn't let Sacred Heart come back and beat you, bro. You was about to be 4-1. My bad, y'all. That's because your team was overhyped, man. Damn, I want them to win. But yeah, you're gonna definitely have to keep the rewatch, catch the rewatch. I am going to try to do my best though to return to West Africa here and there because I have been aboed out, and a lot of stuff might be coming up, and you know I want to kind of deal with it if it does come up, but I want to also bring it back to West African history and culture as we talk about, you know, our history, where we come from directly, and its importance to our now, and why we must fight for this information to continue to be on platforms, circulating in libraries, etc. But yeah, I'm not off the elbow shit. I'm definitely not off of beating them dudes up. I did give them a break for the last few weeks. I think it's been the last few weeks, almost a month or whatever the case may be. But I ain't done with that because they are the worst line son of a bees that exists, bro. And hey Keisha, how you doing? And I just gotta, you know, deal with it how I need to deal with it to handle business like real G's, you know. And that's how I'm coming. Y'all hate Shaw. I retired. They gotta show the actual source before I engage now. I feel you, Shaw, and I'm glad you there. You did a hell of a lot of fighting for the last couple of years, and now you've come to the realization that all they do is gossip. They definitely do. All they do is gossip. I can't tell who worse, Abos or Black MAGA. Hey, the Abos are black, are the Black MAGA. I'm gonna make it even clear. This is a good talking point right here. Right, this got everything to do with Buddy Kirk. What's his name? CK. We're gonna call him CK. Yeah, like Protection Net. You know, Buddy. The misinformation spewed by people in the Abo community and the likes, and the mental makeup of the quote-unquote Black MAGA are drawn to the CKs, despite his racism, sexism, fascism, and misinformation. They are drawn to people like that. And psychologically, right? Psychologically, I don't think that those people are all there. Most of the people that are Black MAGA and Abos, they got a lot of shit a lot of stuff in common. They stupid, right? And you can say that about people that ain't on that level either. Because think about it, it's people that ain't a part of those sects that are also equally stupid, but it's a small minority of us. In the broader scheme of things, if this is the conscious community, right, this is the educated people, the ones who use research methodology, who comprehend, listening and reading comprehend, who have listening and reading comprehensions, who exercise their literacy levels into coming to honest conclusions based on information, not speculations, beliefs, or ghosts. That's the community that people are afraid of. The overall, people aren't afraid of that. They ain't afraid. They're no different than everybody else want to run around and make up shit. He was also the cause of a greater interest in African nations for the sake of gold. He brought the wrong kind of attention back home. Yes, I said that in if you're referring back to Mansa Musa, I don't know how to say your name, Boahen. I said that in volume 3, I think, volume 2 or 3, volume 3 of the Spears of the Masi. I said that about Mansa Musa. He went to Egypt and did all that celebrating, shit talking, and putting on, and it became a detriment for West African people because Europeans knew of West Africa but never really had an entrance of West Africa until he went on and flaunted around all that gold. Now they had a prize and a presence and an interest. Now they using the whole Prester John in West Africa type shit, and that became a problem. And yes, a lot of people are willfully ignorant. Blacks followed and hijacked that movement. Yes, they did. I've been telling y'all since day one, modern day Abo movement started with whites trying to steal oil from Inuit people. You did. And then blacks followed and hijacked the movement. Yeah, because they damn sure wasn't getting no oil. But listen, man. I've been live 2 hours. Hold on. People been coming in, coming out, coming in, coming out, coming in, coming out. I'm going to open the doors. The doors of the church are open. For a little bit. Because I need to watch football. I done miss a lot of football right now. And y'all know I love college football. I don't care nothing about how people feel. But when it comes to college football, that's my thing. There's some good games on later. So I really ain't missing too much. Right now, a couple of big games. Florida State got upset yesterday. That's what they had get. Washington is up 3-0 on Ohio State. Is Ohio State looking down the road? I want to see that Oregon game at Penn State. That's later on. Illinois beat USC. Vanderbilt kicked Utah State behind. Georgia Tech won in overtime by a point. Man, they undefeated. Tennessee playing Mississippi State. Tennessee gonna win. LSU up 7-0 on Ole Miss. Indiana up 7-3 on Iowa. Indiana gonna choke up, slip up, and lose a game. Let me get out of the top 25. Let me go SEC. Bet I had Georgia Tech and LSU. Yeah. See, it's a bunch of games later on around that 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock period. And then goddamn the end of the night, you got Colorado coming on late again. And this is a troubling game for me because if they don't get that defense right up front, man, if they don't scheme it up, it might be a long day. But then again, it could go back and forth. I'm not pressing it. Good show. I gotta watch it back. What happened? What you talking about, the bar? Oh yeah, you never you was late. You wanted to come on your own time. Pastor Bennett, Christianity was there in West Africa. No, it wasn't. Pastor Bennett using the same argument as Vince Bantu. Now the difference between Pastor Bennett and Vince Bantu is that if Pastor Bennett has access to the other material, he will correct himself and he would say, based on the account of Dawadari, there was a Christian presence in West Africa. However, there's evidence that says the latter. And you know, he would come down the middle on the argument. He'll change from being on one side of it, and I've seen this before. That's why I'm saying it. Pastor Bennett will come down the middle on the subject if he knew what I knew, or if he took the information and reviewed it for himself and came to that conclusion. I hope Colorado upset BYU. BYU hadn't played anybody. Their first 3 games been cakewalk games, but the game that they really had to fight against was East Carolina. And the East Carolina quarterback did whatever he wanted to do on that defense, and they made it close. If Colorado can shut down the run game and commit to staying in their rush lanes and playing on the other side of the field or the other side of the line of scrimmage, then Colorado would definitely make some shake, especially if K Salt come out and he continue to play hot and play inspired and play on time and play off schedule and use his feet, then it'll be good. What up, Pure Black? You late, bruh? Sean P, are you on? Nah, I ain't on no TikTok. Bro, you know I don't do no damn TikTok. He said he have Arabic sources that stated that. Mike Jackson, you just joined the show? Mike Jackson, can you let me know if you just joined the show? Because the beginning of this show, up until the last 20 or 30 minutes, 20 minutes or 30 minutes of this, I've been talking about the stuff. So he don't have no Arabic source I ain't got. So you can say whatever, Pat. Listen to me. You can say whatever you want to say. He don't have Arabic sources that say this. There's one person that's in Syria, and he's saying it, and that's Al Dawadari. There's no whole bunch of no, bro. Ain't no whole bunch of Arabic saying that. Just join in. I'm going back. Oh, yeah, you're gonna have to rewind the show and you're gonna have to rewatch it, bro, because I showed the account of who they're using or claiming for that. Now, it's kind of interesting to me that 2 Christians or Christians are so interested in this topic because of a Muslim that's in Syria talking about West Africa. Yep. Find that interesting. Because now y'all done argued with Garfield and everybody else, the Hebrews, the more y'all been arguing with all these people, and now you want to feel like, right, or believe that you guys was Christians before you arrived. The majority of you want to feel like the majority of the enslaved, because y'all know that we was enslaved. So there's no argument there. So you want to feel like that the majority of you were already Christian and practicing Christianity before you even got on the boat. And good luck. That's all I'm gonna say. Good luck. Y'all converted, bruh. They converted a lot of people. Shit, everybody that came to the point of no return was converted. They were given a new name and was converted to Christianity, and they got their ass on the boat. I don't know what magical thing that they did with this water and this missionary with this cross on their forehead and naming the motherfucker John. I don't know what that did, but that's how it looked. No, Mr. Charlie turned us Christian. Facts, Mr. Charlie did. I'm willing to bet it was Muslims, but I don't care about Christianity before the Portuguese. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't no Christianity, bro. The Muslims handling business. Yeah, so if y'all missed it earlier, though, you know what I'm saying? I played the arguments. This is Vince Bantu's argument. This is definitely not a Pastor Bennett argument. And if Pastor Bennett actually owned the documentation, as you say, he said he got Arabic sources, then tell him to share them. I want to see what he see. Change my mind. Let the evidence convince me. I ain't seen the evidence. I don't think it exists. Prove me wrong. And I'll come right back live and tell people. But yeah, so for those of you who have TikTok, Twitter, and all that stuff, man, if y'all know how to clip up what y'all clipping up during any of these presentations or any of these shows that you deem is as a defense mechanism against pseudoscience, pseudo-historiography, pseudo-linguistics, all that stuff, against you want to fight the pseudos, clip that shit, put that shit on there. But just make sure you link the videos back to this. Back to YouTube, so that people can get their, you know what I mean? They want to go full throttle and get the whole meal instead of, an appetizer. But feel free, because I ain't doing that shit. I ain't got TikTok. Y'all got Chris on TikTok? Man, Chris came over there to argue. Chris ass finna get banned. They finna ban him. That's why I ain't on TikTok. I know I get banned in 3 days. But whatever little time they be giving people, I would have said something and cut somebody out. My posts, they gonna get flagged all my posts. Yeah, I been hearing all that shit. Sutek over there. Sutek ain't came back into the space. He done went over there, fell in love with TikTok. LSU up 7-3 in the first quarter. Mississippi State up 7-0 on UT. That's gonna change. So nobody joined, man. So I ain't finna just keep on talking. Yeah, I definitely ain't TikTok savvy. Yeah, Sutek is on TikTok fighting a good fight with Port City now. He on TikTok every day. He should be. Well, not every day. But when Port Nim got stuff going on, Sutek is involved in that. He got enough people to follow him. Oracle will soon be managing TikTok in the States. And until 10/31/25, Oracle is offering free certificate courses. Tell them what you're trying to say, Vyasa. I need to figure out what I'm finna munch on. Oh, I got a question right here. Here you go. Said I just be flirting. There you go. There go the link right there in the chat. Hit that link right there. education.oracle.com/race to certification. Yeah, I ain't going. Shit. Facebook enough for me. I've been at war. Like the last week and a half, man, I've been at war. I ain't even gonna count. Just free information for often discussed. Gotcha. Leandre says Sean will get a response. Then somebody told him he live though. Leandre, I will not be watching or waiting on your response. And if somebody send it to me, I'm not going to deal with you on the subject matter because it's not your subject. You didn't research this. You didn't present this. You can't argue it. It is specifically Vince Bantu's claim, and you don't have the evidence. The mere fact that I provided the evidence that I did on this subject matter, Bro, you never knew that. You never knew that. None of y'all did. I tried explaining to him that they said the shit was odd. He wouldn't take odd. So instead, I didn't want to go further than odd. I tried to leave it at odd with him. And then I tried to tell him, like, bro, when they said it's odd that he would put the word Christian right here, then the mere fact, yeah, you know, you say, oh, the word says right here in his writings. But little did y'all know, little did y'all know that there was already Arabs in the area, and the few Arabs that was in the area, like Bakri and Al-Drisi, they ain't saying none of that shit y'all was saying. They go Sutek right there. Y'all done talk my nigga Sutek up. They go the brother in the chat. Yeah, you're going to have to watch the playback for sure, bro. Yeah, you'll definitely have to watch the playback. See, I wish my brother would take, like, when we do the presentations, I wish he would just take and play the presentations on his TikTok lives. You know what I'm saying? And then, you know, but, you know, my brother busy beating up on the Indians and the ninjas. I'll look at Keisha switching it up. Hey, Sutek Boo. Nah, you was just over there saying how you know, hey, Sutek, I hope all is well. And now you, hey, Sutek Booing. That's crazy. Ain't that cold? Probably I've been eating a therapist. A glass of whiskey to hit a TikTok. Yeah, facts. You gonna need more than some whiskey and a therapist. You gonna have to have. You gonna need a day or two off from work. Hold on, let me see. Mike Jackson asks, what you think about MAGA going to TSU? Oh, great question. So as you know, I'm in Nashville. And I kind of wish that I was close by. I kind of wish I was close by. I think that was been a good opportunity, right? The playbook is to go on to these so-called universities and argue DE&I, immigration, and whatever other topics that they want to argue with young kids fresh out of high school, or might be in a second semester, a second year of school, or, you know, may even be some juniors or seniors. I don't know. I really don't know. I just know that they're young. And you're going to these universities to inspire change? Or are you going to these universities to, what is it that you're actually trying to do? More importantly, what are you doing at an HBCU with your bull jump? Because black students are not all Democrats. Black students don't care nothing about your feelings and about DE&I. Black students are entrenched in what you deem as immigration because they see you as an immigrant. We were brought here. Our ancestors was brought here. We didn't want to come to this mofo. We were brought here. You guys immigrated with the E. You immigrated over here. Some with an I immigrated over here. And I'm saying that for the sense of saying that some of y'all had to do contract work to come on over here and build a life for yourself until the tables turn. So to sit here and talk about the Mexicans who genetically are related to this land, because the first people to inhabit this land or people that they're closely related to, you can't say that they don't deserve to be here. You determined it based on your likings of creating this figurative border now that you've implemented to try to keep them out as if it was a problem. But multiculturalism is the reason that the United States has actually benefited. It wasn't a problem before Trump got in the office. Wasn't a problem. No other president was talking about the borders, border war, and how all this other stuff was coming in. Because one of the goddamn presidents opened the floodgates so that the cocaine could come through. In return, they trading the guns. What are we talking about? Hold on one second. Performance. All right. So, man, listen. I think the worst mistake that they made was trying to go on the campus of an HBCU and try to, in my honest opinion, you're trying to incite something. You're literally trying to instigate, but at the same time, you're trying to draw people in for your views and clicks because you're going to get, you talked about, you're going to go viral. And it's just the state of where we are right now, content. Right? I mean, you know, goods and services still dominate the marketplace, but also content does now. So with a content-driven society, with people becoming influencers and having these different panels and pages and stuff like that, you know, you're going to see the bullshit. And that's the bullshit. We ain't never seen no far-right conservatives ever appear on an HBCU school and try to debate people. That's never happened before. So that goes back to, I think, what's the old girl name? The black lady that MSNBC let go? Joy. Joy had a great take that I ain't think nothing about, but I saw Joy's take on the whole Kirk influence and how a rich white man birthed that whole little movement right there to counter what was going on at universities because they had no response to how or not a response, but they didn't have any presence on campuses, right? So during election years, they were losing the younger vote because, you know, to Democrats, they were more appealing than the Republicans. Now you have the MAGA, which is totally different, and we don't even have the next MAGA. We don't have the next MAGA person. So will the far right MAGAs, will they revert back to the far right Republican Party, or will the Trumpeteers, will they create their own party? Because now you got the Independents, the Democratic Party, the Republican Party, and then the MAGAs. And on both sides of the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, you got extremists. So I don't know what the hell they're going to do. Hold on one second. Leandre, where you at? I seen your comments, Sabio. You call that boy out. My whole thing is, how you gonna argue for another man if you don't even know how the man think or nothing? You talking about you gonna respond to a video? How are you planning on responding to this video and you not this person and you don't have the evidence? Now you can't pull up the informant. You can't pull up the informant and get his exact words. So how can you say that Dawadari is writing the exact words when it's hearsay? I responded in the matter in this presentation in a way that would minimize your ability to be able to respond with evidence. So there is no evidence that you would be able to put forth to sustain the claim. You have to come out of them pockets. Israel definitely buying both sides. They definitely, they the ones. Man, so listen, Israel, yeah, people are so asleep that they can say it out of, yeah. Bro, like, listen, like, to the mere fact that, like, some people don't even care, bro. Like the FBI dude who got bribed, the Republicans responded to that like, we don't care. Yeah, he was bribed to you know, F with paperwork and stuff. Like, they don't care. They want what they want. Listen to me. What you're seeing right now is a problem with racism, with white supremacy. They do not want to lose the power. They do not want to lose that, bro. Think about that. This is their attempt to keep their dominance because they've ruled and dominated this country for so long over, you know, said people that if they relinquish any of their power, it's a problem. Obama being elected as president by the people was a response by some of the white people. It became a problem. Unfortunately, religious people will lie to prove their beliefs. That's a fact. And then think they ain't lying. They think they ain't lying. I was being here to watch Birth of a Nation. They woke up. Birth of a Nation. Hey, y'all remember when this lady named Deanna, you know what I'm saying, on another channel, right? This lady named Deanna, right? She from Baltimore. She told y'all this. She had a little book review. This little book right here by Jacqueline Batalora. I think it's an interview too. The book, ain't nothing but 125 pages front and back. But you know, I usually don't bring the lady up. You know, I don't bring. You know, I ain't even trying to talk about that. No, I just look. You get this book right here. That's all I'm gonna say. Right? And I gave credit where credit is due because I said she put people up on it. You know what I'm saying? Dr. Deanna, I just said it like that. Yeah, the invention of white people and its relevance today. It was written in 2013. Good book. Good short, little, nice little read. You know what I'm saying? You gotta deal with it how you want to deal with it. You feel me? You smell me? They do not want to relinquish their supremacy. Do not. Mike Jack said the Aryan theory is a fact. Oh, it's been hit wise birth of a nation. They woke up. I'm going, yeah, get that book. It's on Amazon. Ain't that much. See, that's the beauty of reading books. That's the beauty. Because think about it. These history books, they have note sections where they specifically, as it relates to those chapters, they are trying to elaborate on a point that they can't make in the text of that particular in that particular paragraph. So those notes and footnotes tell us or be more specific about the things in which they wanted to elaborate on. I want y'all to catch that. These people that say they reading books, they ain't reading the books. You got to go cover to cover. You got to read the notes. That's where the good information at. That's where the good information at. I'm telling you, when they can elaborate. But yeah, so I don't care nothing about no Infinite Minds, bro. How you missed the book, bro? As it pertains to white people, get the lady book. She white. It's called Birth of a White Nation. The Invention of White People and Its Relevance Today. She got videos on YouTube too about the invention of white people, where she elaborates. Man, listen. When them good old boy talking points come up and they start talking about they Jesus and how faith in Christ and all that old shit, that ain't nothing but the motherfucking Ku Klux Klan talking out of them, out the side of the necks of these motherfuckers. Excuse my French, Spanish, Dutch, and English. Straight up. That ain't nothing but racism, white supremacy, leaking and reeking about them. They do not want to lose their grip on this society. For as long as they can dominate, they're in control. Sute, you probably have. She definitely got it's a good lecture on there too. Vasa with another source in the chat. Yeah, I know, that's bulls. Hey, but listen, I think the beauty of it all is why these boys is using Christian and patriotic and all of that old shit. The black church is responding because they gotta defend Christianity now. Like why these white dudes is putting, they morals and principles and perspectives and their supremacy, projecting their supremacy out and then masking it behind the religion. The black pastors have to step up and defend that shit. Now it's the black church versus the supremacists. And what's coming out of all of this is, guess what? When the black church starts speaking, we don't hear shit about aboriginals, wabos, indigenous black natives. None of that shit has come up from the black church. And these motherfuckers going in these churches and sitting in there and acting like they goddamn Indians. And then the whole time, ain't none of the history that they bringing back to these people saying anything about any of them. They getting excluded from the conversation. There's a reestablishment. So the black church, they need to stay the hell up out of West Africa. Their hands full. They need to go deal with the white supremacists and their church, the white church. They got bigger shit to fry. And this is a fact. You know what I'm saying? Don't nobody want no smoke, man. The Abos don't want no smoke. The Christian zealots, they don't want no motherfucking smoke. Not on this topic. And I ain't finna argue about nothing else. I don't care nothing about the Bible. I ain't going in that Bible. Historically, show me your evidence. Show me Noah's Ark. Where the fuck is the Ark at? Take me to Jesus' tomb and show me the bones. You said this motherfucker was great. I don't be sarcastic talking to y'all. Because y'all trying to argue from ignorance. Straight up. Hold on, y'all. I gotta do something real fast. I mean, I gotta do it while y'all right here, but I'm trying to see if y'all gonna somebody was gonna hop on, but look like y'all scared, man. When that work get pulled up, y'all boys get the moving funny. Boy, get the moving funny. I'm gonna do this real quick. All right, there we go. Vasa said he multitasking. What you say right there? Jesus' name in the Quran more than Muhammad. Y'all mains, man. Yeah, that's crazy, ain't it? But you got to remember, though, they gave the Quran, you know what I mean? Your writing script and all that come from the Jews. Why does Jesus have to come back with the Messiah, the Quran? Christ died before Christianity. Uh-oh. IBM. I don't know, man. Listen, IBM, I ain't getting into that, man. Islam versus Christianity. I ain't getting into that, bro. What else he said? Let me see what else. And why does Jesus have to come out? Okay, yeah, y'all to slow it up. So listen, man, I'm gonna end it in in another minute. I'm gonna let it go to 2:45. We know I probably spent about 45 minutes, you know what I mean, just going through other stuff, but you know, I want to just kind of end it right there, you know what I mean, just so people can revisit this. And I really do appreciate everybody for pulling up and spending that time on your Saturday to review this. I don't know if this will be replayed on another channel. I don't know what the circumstance behold. I just know that, you know what I mean, I kind of wanted to deal with the points and provide those points, but use a methodology to help me, you know, be honest about the conclusion on why this is, you know, is going like this. Y'all definitely have to do what Keisha said and hit the like button. yeah, if you're on your phone, sometime it'll ask you to have the app. About the rematch, Sean. Appreciate the information. What you mean rematch? Oh, you mean rewatch? I got you. I was about to say, like, hold on, let me. I got you, bro. Now, I know what you meant. All right, man. So listen, y'all enjoy the rest of y'all day. Have a good one. I don't know when the next time you might see me. I could be live tomorrow. I could be live next week, one of those days. You just never know. Or if it's during the middle of the week, I might pop up. But I appreciate everybody tapping in, man. Like the show, share the show, tell a friend. We live. And, one more time, man. Queen Mother Asante Shakur, sorry. We appreciate the work you've done for us and what you've sacrificed to get us to this point. We love you very dearly. And we know that your loved ones are grieving at this moment, but we are in full support in keeping your name and legacy alive as our children will and shall know your name, and our children's children will and shall know your name. Thank you.
We are the victims of our own innocence. We didn't expect it. We were so unsuspecting. Some of us participated in it without knowing what we were doing. And to understand it, there's 200 years of history you're going to have to look at. 1400 to 1600. It's the major turning point in world history. At the end of these 200 years, the world would never, ever be the same again. Europe had come out of its bag. It had rescued itself at our expense. It had learned longitude and latitude again. Had learned how to handle ships. They had, in their search for Asia and the spices and the sweets of Asia, they had discovered Africa en route, the greater prize. We are the victims of our own innocence. We didn't expect it. We were so unsuspecting. Some of us participated in it without knowing what we were doing.
Big guy. I got the game in the chokehold like a slip knot. Too much ambition, I got too much drive. I'm probably due for a pitch stop. Black dot, repping the team, repping the squad like a mascot. Yeah, I'm the one, you know that I got it, but I still speak for the have-nots. Big guy, I got the game in the chokehold like a slip knot. Too much ambition, I got too much drive. I'm probably due for a pitch stop. Black dot, repping the team, repping the squad like a mascot. Yeah, I'm the one, you know that I got it, but I still speak for the have-nots. Yeah. It's been a hell of a run. I done bagged all of the women I wanted to bag. I probably should slow down and settle with one. Probably should hit up my mama and tell her my problem. She always wanna pray for her son. Tell her I got it, it's nothing your God could do for me. I feel much more safe with a gun. Look what I've done, just look at what I've become. They thought I was stuck in the mud, I done came up. They gotta pay like I weigh, I made them double the funds. Niggas be hating, probably cause they wifey like me and she wanna give me the buns. She got a friend, told her that she can come too because two heads is better than one. My competition is none.